And I said, you must do it.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Nick has been possessed today, so I guess I'm going to be hosting
I
it.
am Emperor Pep. Fuck.
I still have that clip of you being like, "Pee-pee is a unisex word."
Is a unisex word, yeah. Welcome to the podcast. I'm a little bit embarrassed to show my hair because it's not the color that I wanted it to be. Also, my hairline is receding like a lot today. It's like my forehead is growing.
You look like you murdered a family of grapes and then dyed your hair with the blood of their innocence.
Sounds about right. You might notice that things look a little bit different.
Welcome to the podcast where we talk about anything that interests us, whether it be Wendigoon new studio setup or Nick's hair.
Yeah.
Anyways.
We got a new desk, which is kind of cool. We got
It has like storage shelves.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And then we have the TV on the old desk over there. So that's pretty cool. We spent she spent a lot of time yesterday doing things, and I just realized that I look like
In Oompa Loompa.
the greasy Mexican version of like LBJ or something with the flag behind me.
Who?
LBJ?
I'll be leaving.
Our like 37th or 38th president, something like that. I think he was the one right after Nixon.
Doesn't ring a bell.
Anyway, he was kind of a fat schlub. And I'm a fat schlub. Also,
So, are you a
Mexican.
descendant of him, or?
Anyway, today we're gonna do more of the conspiracy theory iceberg. But first,
Nick has a very special announcement to make. Please do share.
do I?
Yes.
What is it?
Apparently, he's forgotten what he's done already.
Well, what I have planned isn't an announcement. It's just a thing that I've done.
Technically, it is an announcement.
Not really. Are you talking about the message that I sent?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not an announcement. It's just a thing that I did.
It's an announcement because you're like, I sent a message.
Okay. Anyway,
Or I guess more of
I feel-
proclamation.
proclamation.
That.
The original idea for the Wendigoon stuff was that we were just going to do the conspiracy theory iceberg, but I mentioned that he also has videos on Ruby Ridge and Waco, which Morgan is like nuts about.
I'm nuts about both of them, but especially
Yeah.
Ruby Ridge.
Yeah,
Like,
and
I
he
want to
wants-
go up to the site where Ruby Ridge actually took place,
Yeah.
even though there's nothing there now.
And I feel like doing 3 or 4 videos on Wendigoon stuff is already enough. But doing more than that, I feel like I should still ask for permission, even though it's fair use and I don't really have to. Because I respect Wendigoon. He's a cool guy. I like him. He's pretty neat. So I sent him a message on Twitter. And I do know that
X.
he... Whatever. I do... Look, if Elon can dead name his kids, I can dead name his site. If thank you for fucking me up.
I was making fun of the name.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
I was also making fun of the name.
Okay.
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 Fuck. Anyway, I sent him a message. I know. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I know that Wendigoon sometimes like replies to fans, so I'm hoping he'll like at least read my message. If he doesn't reply, that's fine, but like I don't expect him to, and I don't want anybody to be like, hey, reply to these guys' message. Don't do that. But what I sent him is, and I quote,
if he sends like a thumbs up or something like that, that's good enough for me.
It's good enough for me. I said, Dear fairest Wendigoon, I do not mean to stroke your ego, but I adore you. And I want to, I said spend, but I should have said share, that adoration with my podcast host, co-host. I know fair use is a thing and all, but I also would like your permission on something. My podcast is small, and I do not want to catch smoke from anybody, because I don't want some idiot be like, oh, you can't take that much of Wendigoon shit. I'm reporting you. I'm flagging you. I'm telling Wendigoon. Like, I we can deal with that if that happens. I just don't want to have to deal with it if I don't have to.
Yeah, stop being a geriatric.
Sure. I would love for us to react to a bunch of your conspiracy stuff, as my co-host is pretty nuts about that stuff. We already have a video coming out soon on your first 2 iceberg videos, but I am humbly requesting your blessing to react to more. Yours truly, Nick from the Taboo Tater Tots podcast. P.S. Co-host Morgan would like to know if you have soft hair. So, hopefully he won't think that we are freaks.
No, he'll just think I'm a freak.
Yeah.
But like, you can't tell me in these videos it doesn't look like he has soft hair.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I just
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny because when he tried sending that the first time around, he had to verify his account.
Yeah, it had me do some weird little captcha because it thought that I wasn't real. And I'm like, no, that is a real ass message that a real ass human being wants to send to another. So that's cool.
And I think it's because of me wanting to know if his hair is soft.
Also, I have a question real quick. Who was that guy from Texas who really, really liked guns, who wanted to run for Congress, that was like affiliated with Donut Operator?
No, not affiliated. They were like best fucking friends.
Because Wendigoon talks to Donut, and I vaguely remember him saying something about
Brandon Herrera, also known as the AK guy.
Brandon Herrera Wendigoon. I want to see if they did anything.
I mean, they're both from Texas, so maybe.
Oh yeah, so there was a video on Brandon Buckingham. It's another YouTube channel, and him and Turkey Tom and Donut Operator and Wendigoon all shot guns with Demolition Ranch. So I'm guessing they all know each other at least tangentially.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Demo, Donuts, Brandon, and a couple of other guys. They're all fucking friends.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge gun lover circle.
Yeah.
Like, they probably take turns jacking off an AR-15.
Yeah. I've seen videos from Wendigoon myself where he's like, and this is how it happened. Imagine that this is an AR-14, and he holds up an AR-14. It's like, this is not an AR-14. Just imagine that it is, even though it's not. Anyway.
Fucking Biden.
and he aimed and he did this, and this is how it would have happened, and this is definitely not an AR-14. Just pretend that it is. Yeah. So how have you been since the last time we recorded? I think it's been a little bit less than a week, like maybe 5 days, 6 days.
Feels like less than that.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Nothing really too terribly exciting that I would want to share on. I got myself a cell phone, fuckers. Since Nick had to go and fucking ruin that shit.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, that's not exciting. That's not... You literally almost punched a hole through the fucking wall because it didn't get here the day that you wanted it to.
I didn't almost punch a hole through the wall. I almost punched multiple holes through the wall.
Yeah, mostly because of rude ass USPS or just
Oh,
UPS
oh,
employees.
I have to share that story.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god. But first, how are you doing?
Fine. My wife got a job. She she's a full-time student, and she's like, I kind of want to get a job, but I don't want everything to be overloaded with school and everything. And she'd been going back and forth for about a year, but now she's finally like, fuck it, I'm so sick and tired of not having real life friends and not getting out and not contributing to the family. I want a fucking job. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I got her a job. It's
Wait.
not even going to be part-time right now. She's only going to start with 2 shifts a week and then work her way up to like part-time.
She doesn't have friends?
Real life friends, no. Like all of her friends are up where she grew up.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Located 6 miles off the coast of Malibu, California, about 2,000 feet underwater,
Did
and
he just
so
say
predominant that it can even be
Malibu,
seen from
California?
Google.
Malibu.
Oh. I got
Earth,
excited.
there is this predominant plateau that sticks up out of the ground, leaving people to think it's an underwater base, even that of extraterrestrial origin. In '95, people started to point at it and figure out it was there, and there was a lot of research happening around it at the time, and it turns out that this had been kept secret for nearly 40 years. Or
That's
the
pretty
rock
fucking stupid.
apes are in reference to a group of Sasquatch-like creatures that were seen by American GIs while in Vietnam. Batututs, as they were called by locals, were so predominant in the area that one mountain that American GIs were stationed on was known as Monkey Mountain because every patrol that went out came back reporting that they had seen the Rockmen. It was so predominant that in 1974, after the war was over, an NVA general led an entire expeditionary force back into the combat zone that they fought Americans in Vietnam just to see if they could discover these creatures. And if you're curious about what they would do, they would see people, begin throwing stones at them, and then run away. Some stories even saying that they threw back grenades that the Americans had thrown. Despite this, none were ever caught or no bodies were ever found, and it's believed that they lived in the caves and rat tunnels in the Vietnam combat zones. Cap Dwa is the name
they were
given to
just
the
jackasses.
skeleton of an Argentinian
I'm intrigued on that one.
Yeah.
giant, which has been famous for some time throughout history. Not only that,
giant.
this 12-foot tall skeleton has 2 heads, and the story goes that in 1673, Spaniards had captured it in Argentina and were bringing it back to Spain. They had it tied to the mast of the ship, to which the giant broke loose, killed 4 sailors, and was eventually killed by the crew, to which the body was brought back and hosted in museums and circuses and things such as. Also, as far as a deeper dive is concerned, there's absolutely going to be one about giants and Agartha and that whole sort of canon of philosophy. I just haven't decided if I want to do them together or separate yet, but there will be one, trust me. So I come to you now.
Dude, things that have 2 heads fascinate me so much, like more than just 1 head, because like that can happen in almost every species. Like I've seen cats with 2 heads and snakes with 2 heads and turtles with 2 heads and of course people. It makes me really wonder if you were to believe in a soul, if people like that have 2 souls or just 1.
Or a soul with 2 heads.
Huh?
Or a soul with 2 heads.
Sure. But something like that is like, it's not just the fascination of, oh, that thing has 2 heads. It's the fascination of, it's basically a petrified mummy, and also it's a giant. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been fucking sitting through this video and almost constantly I feel like a fucking Mexican at the DMV.
Why?
I have no idea what's going on.
Oh, yeah. The first ones were kind of lame, but the last 2 were interesting.
Max Spires was a famous
Interesting.
conspiracy theorist from England who claimed that at a young age he was kidnapped to be a part of a government super soldier program, to which he then escaped and became dedicated to outing the British government, which is why labels like conspiracy theorist were thrown on him so often. He spoke at several TED Talks and different conferences about being weary of one's own government, and led people on ideas such as investigating more into whatever the news propagates and things like that. That was until he went to visit his friend in Switzerland, and then while sitting on the couch began throwing up a black liquid and died in his friend's home. The cause of death to this day is still weird, and a day before he died, he texted his mom that he was onto something and if anything happens to him to investigate. Not only that, but his fiance came out afterwards and said at the conference he was giving the next day he was going to expose several elites that he had found connections to, and then he dies from throwing up black goo, so I'm sure those aren't connected at all. Acoustic attacks is in...
What do you think about that?
Sounds too mean for the British government.
Yeah, I was gonna say if any country was going to make a super soldier, I don't think it would be Britain. But also, in cases like that, and even like the Boeing stuff and different whistleblowers and even Epstein, it's always very interesting when somebody's like, I have information that will expose things to the world that they want to be hidden, and then very, very shortly afterwards they fucking die. It's always a good time.
Yeah, it's always just so fucking obvious.
Yeah.
Like, here's this person that's been fucking causing all these problems for you,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, dead.
Yeah.
Like,
Like Epstein did not kill himself.
No comment on that one. I don't believe either side. Mainly because there was never really any evidence produced.
You think he just... You have to either believe he killed himself or somebody else killed him. There's no middle ground. There was sheets around his neck.
Yeah, and there were probably sheets on the bed, too.
Yeah? We're not moving on from this. He either killed himself or somebody killed him.
Like I said at the beginning of this conversation,
Uh-huh.
I said that right.
No, you didn't.
I know.
Okay.
I haven't had enough evidence to sway me either way.
You are so painfully autistic when it comes to deciding whether people are innocent or guilty of things. It is so painful.
Although I will say that it is fun to blame the Clintons for everything.
So the Clintons did it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's fun to blame them for everything.
Well, I'm sorry about your suicide next week.
Reference
Yeah, I
to an
know.
event. Vegetarianism is a philosophy that is very, very closely related to
Oh, no.
Ainedia, which is sort of a mystic Eastern religion, and it all has to do with prana, which I mentioned earlier. The idea of breatharianism being that if someone balances their ki right and properly figures out how to withstand their own body's state of homeostasis, they can survive with no food and in some cases even no water. There's people who've done very in-depth videos on it better than I can, but essentially there have been people who have gone months at a time under surveillance without eating or drinking, while at the same time there have been total fakes who have said they haven't ate in years, and then someone finds a picture of them at Thanksgiving eating. So yeah, it goes both ways. Famously,
I have heard, I don't know if it's like related at all, but it sounds like it would be related. I've heard of people who like just stare at the sun and claim that they can photosynthesize. So that's cool. I think that people have actually died trying to do that, or have gotten like cataracts.
Blind?
Yeah. What are you doing? Oh. Okay. Yeah, if you're gonna do... Yeah, there you go. Wanna... Yep.
I was sitting here thinking about this table, and I was like, That would make a good footrest.
Yeah.
And it does.
Breatharianism is known as a pseudoscience because several people who have tried a diet of nothing have died, non-surprisingly, and obviously casted doubt onto this entire philosophy. Memphis rap is a brand of rap that originates from Memphis. The original name for most of this is horrorcore, as a lot of the music is composed of noises, has lyrics that discuss murder and suicide and other heavy concepts. It gives an overall feeling of creepy, with most people who listen to it describing that they feel like they're not supposed to be doing it. The 3-6 Mafia, which is now a famous rap group, and if you think about the name 3-6 or 666 Mafia, was one of the pioneers of this genre, with their original tracks having lyrics such as the daughter of the devil and talking of Satanism and rituals and things such as. Idea being that Memphis rap is either a confession of demonic events or sort of a inner look at it.
Dove, man plus care, whole body BO protects you everywhere. Everywhere.
Do you want to pursue a future in cybersecurity? ECPI is the place for that.
Accelerated degrees in
Confession of demonic events or sort of a inner look at it. The Ural relief map, or as it's also known, the map of the creator, is a reference to a white stone slab that was found in 1995. While doing research in the Ural Mountains, a Russian researcher discovered these texts from the 18th century that said there were several stone slabs that were used as maps of the area. The researchers then went out to try to discover whatever the stone slab was and came upon a small village in the Ural Mountains that brought forward one of the slabs. On the stone slab was a perfect one-to-one replica of the valley they were in, but not only that, it had perfectly mapped out irrigation systems, dams, and other large-scale structures that could not have been built at the time the stone was dated, which was anywhere from 8,000 to 120 million years old. Not only that, but the edges of the map, from what it looks like, have been cut off, implying that it is a piece of a bigger structure. This is, as you can imagine, one of the reference points used when talking about ancient aliens. Bitcoins created by banks is, again, exactly what it says. The idea that banks realized that currency was dying out and there therefore needed to be a new currency, so they developed the subversive currency to banks while they secretly own it and are just perpetuating the cycle they were already on. One of the main theories behind this is that the man who created Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, is an alias and the man has never been discovered, with the idea being that big banking groups simply made this fake alias in order to create their own enemy, so they could play both sides. Psychotropic
That's very strange.
is in reference to times that drugs such as LSD or shrooms have been implanted into either water supplies or food supplies in order to mentally stunt the enemy. Not only enemies in the traditional sense, but a lot of this can be traced back to in the 60s and 70s, after MK Ultra, whenever the government was putting acid into impoverished area water supplies to simply see what would happen, or to quell dissonance in the people of those areas. Basically, the idea that you can poison the minds of whoever you're up against. New chronologies and history denials can go very deep, but sort of to shorten it, it's just the idea that there are now new theories that entire 100-year periods of history are either made up or simply filled in, such as there's an idea that Egypt, as it's historically believed, is 300 years older than it actually was. So therefore, that's 300 years of history that's just been entirely fabricated. A lot of this relates to biblical history, which is just using the Bible as a basis for history, and the idea that there are fewer discrepancies that exist between the two. So using the Bible as a hardcore basis for it leads to some miscommunications between how long things really existed, which would mean that the Earth isn't exactly as old, or at least human history isn't as old as we theorize it to be. China's real population is in reference to the fact that China now reports that they have about 1.4 billion people in their populace. However, using things such as TV broadcasting and train and vehicle amounts and other things such as which can be used to measure the amount of the population, it puts the country at about 500 million. Now, what that means is that there are definitely people who would not communicate in ways like trains or TV or cell phone, so therefore it's more than 500 million. However, at the same time, there's absolutely no way to know how many people there actually are if they have no way of being seen through government registries. That has always kind of puzzled me.
that how can there be over 1 billion people in China and there be like let's say, I don't know if this is the real number, like only 500 million people in Russia, when Russia is like 3 or 4 times the size of China. And like just the way that the housing is in China doesn't really make sense. Like they would have to have like sky-rise apartment buildings or live underground or something like that. Like that's never really made sense to me.
I'm sure some people do live underground.
Maybe.
Hole, sweet hole.
Yeah.
Means that China is
And then the prostitute yells, "Get out of there."
numbers
Yeah.
even double as much working off of this theory in order to just seem like a bigger world power, and more specifically to have a higher population than India, who historically they do not have a good time with. So basically China fluffing the numbers by a lot in order to seem more important than they are. Since China is kind of one of the last bastions of the entire idea that the government is always right in the modern world, I could definitely see that, and it does make sense. And that will do it for the first part of Tier 5. Thank you all so much for watching. It really does.
Okay, there's only a couple more in this that really even piqued our interest. Hopefully part 2 will be a little bit better.
Yeah, because so
if-
far this video is ass.
Yeah, if part 2 of 5 isn't very good, the next time we do this, we'll just skip to the last one. I mean,
Would Elmo be counted as a furry?
Elmo?
Yeah.
No. He's a Muppet.
What about Mickey Mouse?
It's just a rat.
No, it's a mouse.
It's a mouse, whatever. Just the cartoon mouse. He's not furry.
But would he be considered?
No, he's not
Okay.
furry. Batman would be considered a furry, probably. Unfortunately.
He's not furry.
No, but he's in a bat suit that's supposed to resemble a bat, and some bats are furry. He's just a sleek furry. And an angry sleek furry.
That's enough of today.
Also, furries who like reptiles are called scalies.
Why?
I don't know. I was gonna say, please come back. I don't think we have enough footage to scrap together a
No, this entire thing has been ass.
yeah.
Like, we need to hit pause and figure some shit
Yeah.
out.
Okay. So, we're gonna change gears because the conspiracy theory iceberg is a little bit like too complicated and don't really understand a whole lot of it, and
And it's not making for a good video of the video, and
yeah, we won't have a whole lot of salvageable footage.
as of how it sits right now, we would probably have maybe 10 minutes
Yeah, so
after editing.
So next time we will definitely do one that you want to do, which is probably going to be the Ruby Ridge one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But right now we're going to try out this.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Wendigoon, and today we are talking about the Ant Hill Kids cult. Now I want to get this disclaimer out of the way. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this video separately from the religion and cult iceberg is that there
I like
is
that
a
Wendigo
lot of
poster
heavy
behind
material in this. I'm not going to show any pictures of it. I'm not going to be unnecessarily crude, but I am going to say exactly what happened to these people, and I'm not going to pull any punches. I want to bring light to this not only to emphasize the horrors that these people went through, but also as a sort of cautionary tale for the atrocities that some people are capable of. I also want to mention there's this cool podcast called Cults, who I listened to in preparation for this, and not only this story, but several other stories. They go much more in depth with the psychology and the background of it, whereas I'm mostly going to be talking about the events of what happened. They talk about everything surrounding it as well. Their link will be in the description if you're interested in that. Also, as you could imagine, This is the perfect video to get demonetized, so I am very...
Okay.
That's right, hairy men. I mean, look at this guy. Do you think he could have been like the 4th president of the
Hairy
United
guy.
States without that sick mane? Or this guy? I don't even know who he is, but he looks cool. I'm sure he did something. You know why I know he looks cool? The hair. And I know what you may be asking, but Wendigoon, all of my hair is falling out. How can I be as amazing and powerful as these old people? But don't worry,
It's a
friend.
sponsor.
I'm proud to introduce our first sponsor and the help to all of your problems. Keeps. Is your hair thinning
go
and
check
that
out
been
Keeps.
from your own house? Think he was bringing home them female? A success too. Personality, the charisma, power. To understand the Anthill Kids, you have to understand their root problem and their leader, Roque Thoreau. Roque was born May 16th of 1947 to a family in Quebec, Canada. Everyone around him
There's
said that
your
he was
problem.
incredibly smart from a young age,
Canadian.
but for some reason dropped out in the 7th grade. In hindsight, a lot of people tend to believe it may simply be because either a lack of home care or a problem with authority, or a combination of the two. Regardless of the reason, as Roque grew up, he became very obsessed with the Old Testament and specifically prophecies of doomsday. Shortly thereafter, he became a devout Seventh-day Adventist, and I want to make this note, as I mentioned in the iceberg, just because this crazy wacko cult person identified as part of this religion, that is not indicative of the religion itself. As a matter of fact, there are several values of Seventh-day Adventists, such as no drinking, that he turned on its head when he decided that social drinking was acceptable. Also, he was kicked out of the church he attended for trying to assume too much power, which is a very treacherous foreshadowing of what was to come later. Around the 1970s, he started doing this thing, which he would have been in his mid-20s around the time. He would approach common people at bars or restaurants or even in church and began to talk to them about his faith and his belief. Everyone around Roque said he was an incredibly charismatic man. Not only that, but he was known to tell little subtle lies, such as about his past to give himself a sadder backstory, or miraculous things God has done for him in his life, in order to seem more approachable and interesting to average people. And this is something else I kind of want to point out throughout this story, is the way that cult leaders operate. See, a lot of people have this sort of idea in their heads, and I think a lot of it's due to Hollywood, that whenever a cult starts, it's automatically lesser-minded people talking to someone who's a really good public speaker. But in like 90% of cases, that's not what happens. Normally, the manipulation takes a really long time, or at least a lot of reason to give into it. So imagine there's someone you know who you've become really good friends with, and after years of talking and getting to know that person, they begin to want to help you to understand why they have it so great. On its own, this is nothing wrong. It can be God, it can be a relationship, or something
I know a lot
similar,
of Mormons.
But the difference with cult leaders is that one way or
I'm
the
sorry.
other, Roque invited people into his commune in the region known as Sainte Marie, Quebec, in which he told people they could live a life free of sin and
Marie,
worry.
Quebec.
However, the first sign of something being amiss would come whenever Roque said that in February of 1979, God would return. Not only that, but that he would destroy
boy.
the earth and they had to find a place to hold up. So in 1978, the entire commune took a hike through the mountains to a region known as Saint Hugo's, or Hogues, I'm sorry, I'm not French, to which the group at the time consisted of himself, 4 men, 9 women, and 4 kids. Once they got to the mountaintop,
kids were
Roque laid
involved.
back and made everyone else get to work building a commune consisting of cabins, common housing, and things similar. And from watching all of them work and him doing nothing, Roque decided to call the group the Anthill Kids, as he attributed them all to little children working in an anthill for himself, the queen. This is also the first step to his real in-game manipulation, as what he was doing was getting all of the members consistently tired and at his beck and call. So in other words, people got to the point where it was a daily occurrence to just do whatever Roque says, and don't really question it because you don't have the energy to. But then eventually, February of 1979 came and God didn't. When members of the cult asked, why hasn't God come if you said he is, Roque said that God's time is not our time, and even got into an argument over the differences between the Israeli and the Roman calendar, saying that it was a miscalculation on his part for not understanding God, but that God was still coming soon. He used this as an excuse to say that he just needed more prep time. And not only that, but that he needed more followers for whenever God does arrive. Using this as an excuse, he then married the 9 women in the cult, to which he fathered 20 children with. However, an event quickly came that ruined their little mountaintop love shack utopia. Roque also proclaimed time and time again that he was a healer,
Did you ever hear about the pastor, I think it was in like North Carolina or something like that, who said that he could heal people through his holy milk? And I kid you not, it was his cum. I don't remember the details, but that was a thing that happened.
Religion is just big fucking joke.
It can be used that way, and it often is, unfortunately.
In this case, you make a religion a joke.
Me?
Yeah,
Why?
because you're you.
Okay.
Be offended, goddammit.
No.
Oh.
Him doing some like weird surgeries such as bloodletting or random exploratory surgeries and things of the like. However, and we're starting on the intense stuff now, this changed one day when 2-year-old Samuel Gilgar had trouble going to the bathroom, or more specifically urinating. Roke, proclaiming that he knew exactly what he was doing, proceeded to take a scalpel and cut open Samuel's, to which Samuel, as you can imagine a 2-year-old would not stop crying. As punishment for this, Roke then ordered a man by the name of Guy Veer to punish Samuel. Now, all of this information I'm talking about has been described by members of the cult who have survived, and what their tellings of it have been in recent years. So there isn't exactly a single diagnosis we can pinpoint. However, it was general consensus that this man, Guy Veer, was very mentally handicapped. Furthermore, family members of Guy before he left for the cult have added on saying that yes, he was mentally deficient. And while we may not know specifically given the time that all of this occurred, it's generally understood that Guy had trouble understanding things and was not the person who one would ask to discipline a child. And during his punishment of the child for crying, Guy Veer killed the 2-year-old Samuel. In an attempt to hide the body, Roke ordered that they burn the body of 2-year-old Samuel, which it didn't really work, so they then buried it near the commune. As punishment for this, Roke then castrated Guy Veer. Guy Veer then died of his injuries, to which he told the entire cult to tell the police that he was killed by a horse. I kind of want to bring up a concept that I think is important to understand why things like this can happen. For those that don't know, there's something called the frog in the water concept. If you've never seen it before, which I wouldn't blame you, whenever you go to cook a frog, you don't have to kill it, you don't shoot it or stab it or anything like that that you would a traditional meat animal. What you do is you take a pot of water and drop a frog into it. The frog will get comfortable in the water and sit there, and all you have to do is periodically make the fire a little bit hotter. As long as you don't jump up too much at once, the frog will continue to sit there in the hot bath. You can do this again and again and eventually get it to the point that the frog boils to death without jumping out, because you were slow enough and it didn't realize there was a change. Whereas if you take a frog and try to throw it in a pot of boiling water all at once, it'll immediately jump out. And this same concept is exactly what happens to a lot of people in these situations. See, it starts out as, I want a separation from this life. I want to do something better for me or God or my friends or whatever. So this guy's going to help me do that. Good, I should go with him. Oh, he wants me to not be attached to worldly pleasures? Well, that makes sense. I'll get rid of all of my stuff and my connections. Oh, he's wrong about his predictions of God coming back? Well, like he said, God's time's different than our time. I guess that makes sense. Oh, he led an event in which a mentally handicapped man killed a child and then he killed the mentally handicapped man? Well, that makes sense because he's a healer and then the child didn't understand that, so the child needed to be taught. So then the mentally ill man tried to teach the child, to which the mentally ill man then needed to be taught, and it all makes sense because he knows what he's doing, because he talks to God. And I want to emphasize that because a lot of people just kind of point at these situations and think, wow, how could anyone be so dumb? But in actuality, it's just the frog in the water. And even though it keeps getting hotter, and even though these people who are very logically thinking, if they would have seen this situation from a mile out, would identify that it's wrong, because they've been sitting in it, and because the water's just been getting a little bit hotter bit by bit, it's harder to recognize that they're boiling to death. So speaking of, we're going to get into some of the more extreme things that happened after this. As you can imagine, various members of the cult decided that they wanted to leave. At this point, it wasn't irregular for Roke to beat his subjects, at first with a belt, but then a hammer, and then the blunt side of an axe. And yeah, if someone decided that they wanted to leave, the standard procedure was to tie them to the ceiling pluck all of their hairs out of their body
Ceiling?
before Roke would defecate on them. In one
Whoa.
instance, he had a member prove their worth to the cult by breaking their own legs with a sledgehammer. And he also did things to people such as making them sit on lit stoves, shoot each other in the shoulder, and even cut off the toes of other members to prove their own loyalty. Also, there was an imaginable amount of sexual abuse mixed in with this as well. This also didn't just stop as the adults, as the children had their own realm of hell to go through, as whenever a child was acting up, it was not uncommon for them to be nailed to a tree and had rocks thrown at them by the other children. Viewer discretion advised. Solange earlier that day had complained of a sore stomach, to which Roke said that he could help her, to which he laid her on a kitchen table, took off her shirt, punched her in the stomach, and then put a plastic tube in her lower intestine, to which he then induced an enema using oil and molasses. Keep in mind, through this entire thing, he says he knows exactly what he's doing as he's a gifted healer. He then cut open her abdomen, pulled out a piece of her intestine, and with his bare hands broke off a piece and just tucked the rest of it back in before stitching her up. He also had members of the cult take a plastic tube, insert it down her throat, and begin breathing into it as a way to inflate her digestive tract. Somehow, Solange lived through the night, although she died in agony the next day. This did not stop Roke though, as he then said it was his job to resurrect her. And using a very butchered and horrific version of the Garden of Eden, he decided he was to do so with the seed of man. So he cut open her abdomen, took out her uterus, drilled a hole into her skull, and then had him, as well as the rest of the men in the cult, commit acts of necrophilia. Obviously, this didn't resurrect her. However, he pulled out one of her ribs and then wore it as a necklace, saying it was as Eve came from the rib of Adam and blah blah blah. Her body was then buried a short distance away from the commune itself. Keep in mind, at this point, everyone is experiencing extreme versions of Stockholm Syndrome. That includes one member by the name of Gabriella Lavallee, who had experienced her own abuse when, after complaining about a toothache, she had 8 of her teeth pulled, as well as the aforementioned soldering and having a hypodermic needle broken off and being left in her back. After everything that happened to her, and after seeing what had happened to Solange, she decided to get out of there. In July of 1989, she attempted to make her escape. However, she was caught by Roke, who then took her inside, pinned her arm to the wall with a hunting knife, and then amputated her arm using a chainsaw. Finally, the nightmare ended on August 16th when Gabriella managed to make an actual escape on her second attempt. She went hitchhiking to a hospital just north of Toronto, in which even then she was apprehensive to report what had happened, saying that her arm had been broken in several places and Roke took care of her by amputating it. Eventually, the truth began to come out, especially when police, who ever since the children were taken away from the cult began to suspect something nefarious was going on, came to Gabriella and began to ask her about what really happened. When finally in August of 1989, Roke was arrested for 3 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of unlawful bodily harm. He pled guilty to these and received 12 years in prison. However, as soon
Only
as Roke
12?
was taken away from the Anthill kids at this point, they all immediately began to turn on him, or at least most did. This led to one of the members showing the authorities the body of Solange Bulliard, to which led to Roke having a second-degree murder sentence stacked on top of his current sentence, which gave him life in jail with the possibility of parole in the year 2000. If there's any question in your mind of maybe Roke believed his own hype, as I kind of had going into this, while in jail, he got in trouble for trying to sell his drawings and poems that he had written while in jail on a website called murderauction.com, which prides itself on selling memorabilia of serial killers.
Holy
yeah,
shit.
I don't really think he cared. Finally, all this ended when on February 26th of 2011, the 63-year-old Roke Thoreau was killed by Matthew McDonald while in prison. Matthew had been Roke's cellmate and had gotten really tired of Roke talking about the actions that he committed while a cult leader, to which Matthew took a shiv, stabbed Roke to death in the neck, went to a guard station, dropped the shiv off, and said, I'm quoting, "That piece of shit is down on the range. Here's the knife, I've sliced him up." This added a life sentence onto the life sentence that Matthew was already earning, And as far as I'm concerned, that should have counted as community service hours.
Yeah.
Handhill Kids has to be one of the most disturbing
For
cult stories
real.
I've ever read. But I want to highlight something in it that I think is important, that a lot of people overstep when they read stories like this. And that's Gabriella. Think about the position Gabriella had to be in. She not only had children with this man, but she was surrounded by his teachings at all times, and literally lived for several years beneath his thumb. To which she then decided to break the cycle and escape, and she was horrifically punished for it, but then she tried to escape again. 1 month later, the willpower that she had to have to not only break that cycle of abuse, but after experiencing an extreme punishment for doing so, do the same thing again. And not only that, but her getting out and telling the police could have saved some, if not all, of their lives. The reason this story didn't end like Jonestown with everyone dead is quite possibly because Gabriella tried again. And while yes, it is a horrific and evil...
So you're gonna have to put a trigger warning before we watch this video.
12 years? Only 12? Before the murder charge? That's fucking bull.
I'm hoping we get at least 45 minutes out of this. I am dearly sorry for those who stuck around for this. Morgan is going to edit out the more harsher details of what happened. Cause
Wait, your levels of harsh or my levels of harsh? Because they are very different.
I mean the
Again, your levels of harsh or my levels of harsh?
my levels of harsh, like the drilling a hole in the head and then
Okay, yeah, that
obviously
was too much.
obviously
Even
and
for me,
then-
that was too much.
and then him talking about slicing the kid and
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
honestly just gonna cut that out.
yeah. If you want to know, Morgan will cut those parts out, the horribly harsh parts. And I mean, I'm sure Wendigoon even like dumbed it down hardcore. I doubt that his video is monetized.
Yeah.
If you want to know the harsh, horrible, gory details, go check his video out, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll cut a bunch of shit out of the video. It'll be like that 2-year-old all over again.
Okay. I am deeply sorry. This is kind of my fault that this video didn't turn out very well.
Yeah, you planned this shit,
Yeah.
motherfucker.
Next video, we might do something that's not Wendigoon related, and then the video after that, we can do the Ruby Edge video. Maybe, I don't know, depending on if we have anything lined up. I do still want to at least watch some of the very last conspiracy theory iceberg video myself, and if anything is understood, we can do that at a later date as like a backup video. But for now, we're probably not going to do that. Yeah. So, I hope you enjoyed hearing about probably the worst horrific cult I've ever heard about.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually feel sick.
I don't feel sick, but I do feel bad in my soul.
What soul?
Fuck you.
I'm good. Not tonight. I want to go to my basement.
Okay. Other than that, do you have anything to add?
This video or this recording session, shit.
Yeah, it was.
And I blame you 100%.
You're welcome. I have to piss. So,
What did I say? Every time we end this with you either having to piss or shit.
I mean, to be honest, my bladder is the size of...
A walnut?
Yeah, let's go with that. I had... Fucking... Never mind. I had a really bad thought. But yes, thank you. Check out all the links in the corner. Check out the tip jar if you want to donate. Check out the Twitter, the Redbubble, the Patreon. Hopefully here soon we'll do something new for the Patreon.
In the
We haven't done
meantime...
anything since December.
In the meantime, I'm gonna go bleach my eyes. Goodbye, guys.
He was pointing it right in my head. He's like, drive, motherfucker. Hello, Morgan. How are you?
I have AIDS in my nose.
I found that is not a good thing. Where to? Oh, there's the thing. I got abused. Yeah.
It's gonna have more cuts than the emo kid in school.
How long have you been black? As I turn off the key and open the door, all I hear is, stay in the car! And I'm like, I fucking hate you! Oh my god! Oh. Very cool.
Hey, that was a boom. That was a boomstick. Grandma's gonna be mad at you.
Fucking what?
And then 2 scoops of ice cream.